Hi there, it's Mitch, and before you hear that familiar music, I have a small favor to ask. I've been making this podcast for several months now, and since I've settled in and pretty much gotten the hang of things, I want to know what you think of the show. What do you like about the podcast? What do you not like? I want feedback on whatever you have thoughts about, whether it's the music, the kind of news and content you're hearing, or my silly dad jokes, which I've gotten farther away from, apparently. Or not. I make the show for you, which means you have a big stake in how it sounds. So please drop me a line at thefrequency at vermontpublic.org. You can also find that address in our show notes. Thank you. And now on to the show.
From Vermont Public, this is The Frequency. I'm Mary Angish, filling in for Mitch Wertlieb. It's Thursday, February 15th, and here are today's headlines. Prosecutors, judges, and public defenders told lawmakers this week that Vermont needs to increase spending on the judicial system if it wants to improve public safety. John Campbell is the commissioner of the Vermont Department of State's Attorneys and Sheriffs. He says Governor Phil Scott's budget proposal could force his department to eliminate as many as 9 positions next year. And he says that could delay the state's effort to address intensifying concerns about public safety.
In order to meet the needs that we're seeing, to try to make a dent in it, we need resources.
Judges and public defenders have raised similar concerns about Scott's spending plan. Democratic lawmakers say their budget proposal will likely have more funding for prosecutors, judges, and defenders than the Republican governor proposed. And staying in Montpelier, lawmakers in Vermont's House are weighing a bill that would ban the use of seeds treated with neonicotinoid pesticides. Research shows the chemicals are toxic for bees and other pollinators. Quebec, Ontario, and New York have adopted bans, and Vermont would be the second state to do so. Scott McCart, an entomologist at Cornell University, testified to lawmakers earlier this week. He looked at more than 5,000 studies examining how effective coated seeds are at improving crop yields.
There was surprisingly limited evidence for benefits from neonicotinoid treated seeds in corn and soybean.
McCart says the pesticides do improve crop yields for vegetables and fruits, and in some cases there are no good alternatives on the market. But he says crop yields for corn have not declined in places where neonics have been banned. The Agency of Agriculture says a ban would disadvantage Vermont farmers. The Champlain Valley Farmer Coalition says it supports a ban in 5 years, but other farmers have asked lawmakers to call for more Vermont-specific research. One of the largest hospitals in the region says its emergency department is at capacity, leading to delays for non-life-threatening care. Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center in Lebanon, New Hampshire, has experienced overcrowding in the emergency department for the last several weeks, according to a press release. That's due to staffing shortages and seasonal illness, said President Dr. Joanne Conroy in a recorded video message. But she said the delays do not extend to patients with urgent conditions.
I want to assure you that patients experiencing a serious medical emergency, such as a traumatic injury, a stroke, a heart attack, will be seen right away. Our medical team will prioritize your care based on the urgency of your condition.
Conroy said patients with less serious conditions might have to wait for up to 24 hours to be admitted to the hospital. That's not the case everywhere. A representative at Rutland Regional Medical Center says they are not experiencing unusual wait times. Vermonters and Mainers who didn't have enough to eat during the pandemic were able to improve their food security by growing and harvesting their own food. That's according to new research from the University of Vermont and the University of Maine. Meredith Niles is an associate professor in nutrition and food systems at UVM and the paper's lead author. She says activities like gardening, hunting, fishing, trapping, foraging, and raising livestock can be overlooked when making food security policy.
There aren't a lot of policies on the books that specifically think about home and wild food production. So I do think it's a great opportunity. We finally have a peer-reviewed published study with data from our state at a large scale that clearly shows this has a difference in food security.
Niles says the research shows people experiencing chronic food insecurity are more likely to face barriers to growing and harvesting their own food, but they're also more likely to do those activities. Coming up, I talk to the director of a film about an artist's enclave in Montreal that no longer exists. That's after this. There's a 4-story brick building in Montreal that has lived many lives. Beginning in the 1850s, it housed a Catella pasta factory. After World War II, more than 400 workers made coats and other garments there. And for the last several decades, dozens of Montreal's finest painters and artists made their studios in the space. But just over a year ago, the family that owned the building for the last 70 years sold it. Now there are new tenants, and the vibrant artists community is no more. The film 305 Bellechasse from Maxime Claude Lecuyer takes the viewer into several of the studios before that happened, with the voices of the artists serving as tour guides. It's part of our Made Here series, now in its 9th season, and the film airs tonight at 8 on our main TV channel. And Maxime Claude joins me now to share more about the film. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
First, what is your connection to this building? How did you decide to make a film about it?
Yeah, it's mostly it's with my friends, painters. The first one that introduced me to the building was one of the characters of the film, which is called Jean-Benoit Pouliot. And Jean-Benoit was the first for me to enter his studio space in 305 Bellechasse. And I went from studio space to studio space and discovered all these beautiful studios that, we're not really invited in some artist studio space. So that's wonderful to discover those spaces where full of life, full of creation, full of art everywhere. So that's mainly my first encounter with the 305 Bellechasse.
Mm. We get introduced to the main character of the film, which is the building, and they mention the wood floors and the high ceilings and just that look of the space and how it's really conducive to their work as artists. It's sort of like what made your filmmaker's brain light up when you walked in to 305 Bellechasse?
As you mentioned, the 305 Bellechasse, the building itself is a character in itself in the movie. It's all the feeling of the space, the memories, the ghost-like of what has passed from all the years in the building, and the presence of the artists, all different, nine different studios that I visit during the film, and each of the studio has its own character, has its own feel. Yeah, for me it was to try to tell how I feel about the studio and maintain that to the viewers. And I did also I did only audio interview with the artists.
The Frequency is sponsored by Vita. Since 1974, Vita has helped Vermont businesses grow and thrive. From agriculture to energy, startups to family companies, find solutions that fit your business. Visit VEDA.org to start your next chapter today.
So we don't.
And the Vermont Lottery, which remains committed to contributing 100% of profits to the Education Fund, providing over $500 million total since 1999. Learn about the Educate and Innovate initiative at vtlottery.com.
See them. When I did the interviews, all the artists give them the interview with a lot of intimacy, a lot of they spoke freely about their work, how they approach work, how they see art, how the space interact with their work also. So it was really like an encounter. Each of them give me a really intimate approach to their creative process.
Yeah, you're just mentioning it now, and I'm only now realizing that we don't ever see the artists.
Yeah, and maybe because we don't see them, we allow ourselves to be more free. Like the eye is more free. We can travel the space, and this is also a really really editing, a long and meditative kind of editing. So the viewer is more left to have time to scrutinize the image and to scrutinize what he wants to see in the studio and add his own ideas of what the art and what the space is about.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that definitely comes through too, like you said, like in the sound design and the certain shots that you're showing of each specific artist.
Well, but each studio, I ask the artist to give me one day without anybody at the studio, and I try to capture like really wide shot to enter the space and go in deep in all details of every aspect of the painting, of the remain painting. And also there's a lot of sound design also, that what they listen or not listening, what is the feel of every studio. And the challenge was always to find all the coherence between the artist, the art, and the studio space. That's the contrast between each and every studio that makes the film exciting in a way.
Oh, that's so intriguing. Can you sort of give us an update on the current status of that building? Did they leave voluntarily? Were they evicted from that space?
Yeah, that's a sad part of the story. Actually, they all get evicted from the space. So the new owner did not want artists there anymore, and everybody is spread around the central of Montreal. So they were spread east or north, and it's a film about memories, but it's sad in a way. But I was lucky to capture the memory of the building before everything has gone. So now they all renovated, and I think the building is for some business office space, and it's half empty. But this is something that is all big cities in the world have the same issues, which is like the center of the city. Artists go to different places. The place become super interesting for investors, and after a couple of years, the artists cannot afford to stay, so they move away from the cool corner and go far away and do another cool neighborhood that they cannot afford in 10 years. So that's the cycle of it.
Well, Maxime Claude, thank you so much for talking a little bit more about 305 Bellechasse. I really appreciate learning more about it.
Thank you so much.
Québécois director Maxime Claude Lecuiller's film 305 Bellechasse is the latest entry in Vermont Public's Made Here local film series, and it airs tonight at 8 on our main TV channel. Thanks for listening to The Frequency today. We had additional reporting from Peter Hirschfeld, Abigail Giles, Lexi Krupp, and Elodie Reed. Our executive producer is Kevin Trevelyan, and our music's by Blue Dot Sessions. I'm Mary Engish. Talk to you tomorrow.
Black perspectives haven't always been centered in the telling of America's story. Now, we're taking center stage. Introducing NPR's Black Stories, Black Truths, a collection of Black-led stories from NPR's podcasts. Search NPR Black Stories, Black Truths wherever you get your podcasts.